so good to have you. Thanks for joining us. This is a new show where we'll discuss spiritual and biblical matters and God's plan for your life. And from time to time, we'll probably have a few special guests and discuss some really interesting topics. But I want to ask, have you ever walked into a room and forgot the reason you went in there in the first place? I know the older that I get, it kind of seems to happen a little bit more often. Probably seems like maybe once a week my wife's trying to help me find my car keys, stuff like that. Part of getting older. But I think sometimes life can really be like that. We started out with a purpose, an intention, and a determination. And somewhere along the way, we just kind of forget what we are doing. We forget why we're even doing it. And sometimes we need God to give us that little gentle tug that he seems to be so good at. And it's just good to be reminded sometimes, because it's real easy to forget our purpose. And I know that a lot of times, like if you've ever started a new job, you've got in your frame of mind that, I'm going to do excellent at this, and all of your attention is drawn towards that. But life can be very distracting at times, and it's easy to get pulled away. Or also, sometimes as you continue through what you're doing, life happens, because at first you're like, this is going to turn out so perfect, and I'm just going to excel at this, and you end up running across a couple speed bumps. But I mean, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. That's what they say. But it's real easy to begin to doubt yourself. Matter of fact, in Exodus chapter 3, we read about Moses tending the flock in the wilderness and seeing a bush that was on fire but not being consumed. Little weird, got his attention. God often calls leaders in the Bible who have experienced watching over sheep because, well, sheep often are forgetful. They lose their way, and they tend to wander off. And we as people, we're kind of the same way. We can be a little bit stubborn, and we have our own ideas of what should be done, and we just kind of do what we think's best. But I digress. And how cool is it that one of the first representations of God that we have in the Bible being revealed after the fall of man, where we can actually see him, just happens to be a bush that's on fire and isn't consumed? I think that's a direct representation of what we're supposed to be also. Jesus said he is sending us as sheep before the slaughter. Yeah, I get it. Sounds a little bit morbid. You know, I'm pretty sure that wasn't his opening line when he went to the disciples and said, hey, come follow me. You're all going to eventually end up dying. And they all did. They all died very painful deaths. But, you know, life's not always about the pain that we endure here in this life. It's about the permanent effects and the eternal effects that we leave on the other. But case in point, it's not always easy. The fire is uncomfortable, but it does not have to consume us. And it won't as long as we keep our eyes where they belong. Kind of like Peter. Everybody knows that Peter's the big mouth of the Bible. I think he was louder than any other prophet or any other disciple. You know, I mean, he was very opinionated, and he didn't mind speaking his mind. He was always the first one to jump to conclusions. But at the same time, he was the only one that ended up jumping out of the boat. Okay, so imagine seeing Jesus walking on the water. He didn't realize it was Jesus. And a lot of times Jesus can be moving in our lives, and we don't realize that it's him. It comes in the form of a storm because, you know, we just really connect Jesus with that calm voice, which it is. But he also uses the storms in our lives. And he looks at Jesus. He said, if it's you, bid me to come into the water. We all know the story. Peter got his eyes off of Jesus, and he started drowning. And it's, you know, probably no doubt that the other 11 disciples were like, I knew it. I knew this was going to end not going to end well at all. But he wasn't worried about that. And he was the only one with enough faith to do what needed to be done. Now, Moses was told to go rescue the children of Israel, but he was very reluctant. He told God he was slow in speech. And let's be real, this is the South. We are very used to that. I used to make phone calls in business in different parts of America, and at least once a week I became a laughing stock and someone's source of entertainment over the phone call. And but scholars believe that Moses probably had a speech impediment. And if you were probably, herding sheep and tending to them for 40 years, making their usual noises, you probably would too. But God didn't care. And I want to pause there for just a quick moment, because there's a lot of people that never end up living up to their full potential because they have all of these doubts in their minds and the overthink stuff. Matter of fact, there's a lot of intelligent people that have got a lot of degrees that say that the smartest people never become successful because they're constantly doubting their abilities to do things. And yes, as a Christian, I want to tell you, it's okay to doubt yourself. But if God's in you, then you don't have to worry about doubting yourself of what you're capable of doing. It's what God's capable of doing in you. And the most important part to realize is that we're just vessels. That's it. But once again, God didn't care. God could have called someone eloquent in speech with more degrees than a thermometer, but he called Moses. He had a plan, and it was going to involve a very imperfect person who once committed murder and was going to raise them up for his glory and set the captive free. Honestly, the Bible's filled with lots of examples of people who were very imperfect, but they still made it into the Bible as being used from God, and actually also being known as very important men and women of God. I mean, David, who was called by God and also considered a man after God's own heart, committed murder with Bathsheba, someone that he had relations with that he shouldn't have, and he tried to cover it up and ended up murdering a person, but God still used him. We have to remove ourselves out of the way and realize that it's not always about us, and that all of our righteousness is as filthy rags, and that God uses imperfect people, makes them a part of his perfect plan. Some of you quit church and quit God because you were hurt by imperfect people. The pain's real, I get it, but God's not changed. He still loves you, and he still has a plan for your life. So don't forget why you walked into the room, for you and for what you intended to do. I've seen new Christians so on fire after first coming to Christ, and honestly, if we're not careful, church and religion sucks it right out of them. They are taught formalities and how to become like a machine rather than developing an organic relationship with God. Isn't that the whole purpose why Jesus came down and died on the cross anyway, was to form a relationship with us? If you've ever done sales at all your closings are based on a relationship. I know I'm talking business here for a minute, but you develop a friendship with your client and you get to know each other. And that's what Jesus came down to do. He came down to develop a relationship with us so that way that we can get to know him. He knew everything about us, but he wanted us to have a chance to know his inner workings, who he was. He could have came down majestically and just fixed everything, but he came down in human form and endured all of the things that we will endure, so that way that he could prove that it can be done. But the church can't reach people they're not willing to touch or talk to. Luke chapter 5 discusses a leper, a man with a disease that causes your skin to basically rot off of your face, just in case you're wondering, and it's also very contagious. He came to Jesus asking for help. You think COVID was bad? Wait till someone comes to you for prayer with leprosy. But Jesus didn't even hesitate. He was moved with what was inside of his heart more than what he saw with his own eyes. And Jesus said, I will be ye clean. And I want to pause there just for a quick moment. It literally is that simple. Anything that you're dealing with, anything that you're going through, many people that I'm speaking to are afraid to come to God because they feel unclean. But that's what God does. That's what Jesus does. He cleans you up. It's not your job to clean yourself and then come to God. You've got to give God the opportunity and realize that he can accept you just as you are. But he told him, he said, be ye clean, and it happened. If that had been most of us, we probably would have said, you know what, I'll add you to my church prayer list, or bid them farewell, go with God, go in peace, peace out. But Jesus remembered why he came into the room. He came to do the will of the Father. He knew this at age 12. When Mary forgot him at the temple, she left the 12-year-old Messiah, basically lost him in the clearance section of Walmart, and went on her merry way. She had one job, raise Jesus, and she lost him. Not for 5 minutes, not for an hour. She lost him like for a day's time. Mary wasn't perfect either, but Jesus loved her anyway. And she was chosen by God. And regardless of your imperfections, God's also chosen you, but many are called, but few are chosen. And she had a purpose, and so do you. It's okay to doubt yourself. Yeah, I know, that's right, I said it. It goes against everything you were ever taught, but I don't care. You are no good on your own, but with God's help, you can be dangerous, you can be effective, and you can be influential. Let all your past go. I don't care what's in your past. I don't care how recent it is. I don't care if you pile it up like this. I mean, God ended up using Paul, and Paul used to kill Christians, okay? Literally, that was his job. He was a Christian killer until he had his divine revelation. Well, today is your divine revelation. You're given a crossroads where you can turn from your wicked ways and you can embrace God. And once again, all of our righteousness is as filthy rags. I'm not standing before you a perfect person by no means, but you can cast your cares on him because he cares for you. And just give God a blank canvas and he will make you a masterpiece. We are all like stained glass windows. We have beautiful broken pieces. We're even rough around the edges sometimes. People have tried to handle us in the past and we've harmed them. But God is so skillful in making the pieces fit right where they should. He puts them back in all the right places, and somehow they're even better than they were before. So stop hiding your flaws. God knows they are already there. Let him utilize them and make you into something of inspiration. Your past is your testimony, and it's a powerful one. And if you are dealing with things presently, well, that just makes you human, and God accepts you as you are, right where you stand. He sees you from afar off. He's been anticipating your return. You were always meant to be with him. He never left you. You walked away, but that doesn't matter. He wants to clothe your filth with a robe of righteousness and place a ring of royalty on your finger. It doesn't matter if you smell like slop. He embraces you all the same. You don't have to be perfect to come into his presence. You have to come into his presence to be made perfect. Don't let the enemy lie to you. It really is that easy. It's a simple choice with everlasting rewards and an everlasting consequence. This road has been laid out before you and paved before you since the day you were born and before the corners of creation were made. You were destined for it. So guys, just remember, you don't have to be perfect to be used by a perfect God. All you've got to do is be willing. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And God bless. Have a great day.